Hello and welcome to InnoGrid TV in association with Engerati. I'm joined now by James Watson, CEO of SolarPower Europe. Thank you for joining us, James.
Thank you, Rose. Nice to be here.
You're a Brussels-based association for the solar power industry, so are very well placed, I imagine, to give us a good snapshot of what the industry is looking like in Europe at the moment in terms of output and projects and
Yeah, we are very well placed to do that. Indeed, solar's looking very bright in Europe at the moment. Last year we covered 100 gigawatts of installed capacity, so this is an absolutely unprecedented growth of renewable energy. We started really at that kind of level of really becoming quite a large energy player only as recently as 2007, 2008. So in 10 years we've gone to about 100 gigawatts, which is about the equivalent of 100 large coal plants, just so you can understand in your mind what that looks like. And so coming from virtually nothing to a lot in a very short period of time, we have been able to be quite an interesting disruptive force on the energy market and the energy system. Now, it's not necessarily badly disruptive, it just means that we have to look at new ways to deal with the type of energy production that we have from solar. And I think that solar has a lot going for it. Of course, it really does put the consumer at the heart of the energy system, which is what the European Union wants to do. And so in a way, solar is actually the natural way of doing it, because you and I can these days afford to put solar on our homes or live in apartment blocks which have solar on the roof to reduce the overall cost of electricity for those buildings. So right now, solar's looking very well set. Of course, we need the right regulatory environment, and we need to make sure we don't build in barriers. Anything that creates a barrier has to be avoided because it simply increases cost. We need to keep costs down.
So, clean energy package, I imagine that was quite welcomed by your members, by the association?
Indeed. I would say that the European Commission have done a good job of moving in the right direction. They understand that they need to build a whole new market for electricity, which basically should reflect a new type of generation profile. Not just solar, but also wind and other renewables. But the reality is that you need to have much more decentralisation, you need to have more flexibility, and we need to move away from the idea of coal, nuclear as base loads, and really think, how do we make a flexible electricity market work?
Yeah, so how are you overcoming those challenges of creating a decent volume of solar being decentralised?
Well, I have to smile in a way because, as I said before, some people say that we're the disruptive ones and that we've created all the challenges. The reality, of course, is that in part solar can answer some of the questions. We can make our inverters more used. There are certain countries where the regulations that limit what they can and can't do, and I mean things like active power controls or frequency regulation. And so I think that we are able to do more in solar, but the truth is we can't do it all on our own, and as you know as well as I do, the sun comes up in the morning and it goes down at night. So you've got to have something in reserve to deal with the fact when we don't produce. And so in a way it's quite good being a solar representative because we know we can't solve everything on our own, and we need to have solutions like demand response, storage, other renewables and other flexible power generation which can simply be turned on and off at the flick of a switch, depending on our variability.
So I was just wondering, we were chatting to Wind Power Europe yesterday, and they're using data to predict the weather up to 72 hours in advance, which obviously they can provide to system operators.
Indeed.
Is there a sort of equivalent for solar?
Yes, indeed. We have many people in many different companies, and this is another beautiful thing about solar. There are a lot of really interesting, innovative startups that have been able to produce these kind of new products and new services, which indeed do allow us to have much more predictability in terms of the output of solar that you're going to get from our over 100 gigawatts. And I think we've gone through a sort of evolution where we were called intermittent producers and then variable. What I'm hoping that we're going to get to in the next 4 to 5 years is more of a predictable output. So if you can go through those, I mean, it's not to say that we want to be base loads, but you can predict. And when you can predict better, it means you can manage things more easily. I'll just give you an example. We worked with NSOE on the solar eclipse. So of course we know the solar eclipse is coming in 2015, and of course it went off absolutely no problems whatsoever. But when you can predict, you can deal with things much more easily. You know that there's going to be an impact on the outage. So getting to 72, getting it to 5 days, getting it to a week in advance to a certain degree of error, I believe this is where we have to go.
Just thinking about trading actually, what do you feel is the best model for prosumers who have rooftop solar to be able to trade that energy? either between themselves or between the grid operator?
I was going to say, it's difficult for me to pick a winner. There are lots of different ways that they can actually make the most out of their system. And I wouldn't necessarily preclude one over the other. I think that they should have the option to do different things. I think it makes it more of an interesting investment. We should be encouraging people to get involved in this technology. And therefore, I think that you could say, maybe you want to go to a kind of blockchain model, maybe you want to sell excess to the grid. All of these things should be enabled, and they're complementary. And therefore, I won't pick a winner for you, I'm afraid. I think they all play their part.
Are you exploring those sort of technologies yourselves?
Indeed.
You're doing like pilots?
Indeed. Oh, well, we don't do pilots, and I will say that. I mean, but what we do is we work with our members and listen to them and their experience. And there are people doing blockchain today. We have something called Solar Coin that's been set up, which is already a currency, if you like, which is being traded between solar homeowners online. This is the whole digitalization element of the energy system that we're seeing more and more. It's driven by consumers. Solar is very close to consumers. And so I always say that solar is ultimately driving the digitalization of energy, because digitalization means the controllability of energy within the consumer's hands.
A big theme of the event here is the network of networks, so joining up all these networks across Europe. I mean, how, from your perspective, do you see that's achievable in the short term, mid-term, long term?
That's a very good question. Ideally, as soon as possible, because the reality is, of course, we're not just on the rooftop, we are on the ground as well. And you did ask earlier, and I didn't answer it. It's about a 60-40 or 65-35 split in favour of rooftop against that that's ground mounted. And I think you need different solutions for different types of solar. And so we need to have networks that can transmit across long distance, the large outputs from our utility scale. You need the right networks to deal with all the small homeowners, the industries, the IKEAs and others who put their solar panels on their roofs also. And so from my point of view, it's so crucial and critical that we get the grids properly working together so that we're able to move the energy to where it's needed, from where it's being produced, at the flick of the switch, if you like. This would be critical to the overall success of how we create a new energy market.
And from your perspective, do you feel there's sufficient investment in those interconnections and the way you can get, solar from Spain to another part of Europe?
Well, you picked Spain, and I'm not going to upset the French by saying, of course, the Spanish example is a great one, because, of course, it only has a connection with France, and there are difficulties getting it across the border. But I do believe that it is going to be very, very important that we do see more investment going into this area. I suppose you could take the sort of the 3 I's, invest, 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 because that's what we're going to need if we're really going to have the kind of infrastructure that we need to deal with a modern digital electricity system.
And I just wanted to finish by asking you about technology. Any kind of new breakthroughs in terms of film or battery that's kind of a game changer that we should be looking out for?
Well, I picked 2 things. One I would say is building integrated photovoltaics, so building integrated solar, say roof tiles. You may have seen people like Elon Musk with the solar tile. As far as I'm aware, that's not yet in production. But there are a number of companies in Europe, Solar Century, Merck, who already have these products available. And I do believe that will change again how people view solar. At the moment, we don't have problems with public acceptance. People seem to don't mind too much the panels on people's roofs or on factory roofs or in fields. But I think that when we move into an era where you have products like building integrated photovoltaic just looking like another tile in people's roofs, then you're really overcoming any objection anybody could have about solar. And then I would say on the other side, of course, it's storage. Storage is a huge innovation that is coming on and on. Of course, we've had batteries for a very long time, but they're getting cheaper, they're getting better, and this means that we'll be able to do more in terms of making us more predictable, to come back to that point.
Okay, that's a good note to finish on. Thank you, James, for your comments.
Thanks, Rose.
That's all we've got time for on InnoGrid TV in association with Engerati. Thanks for watching.